Number 1, x squared minus 5 equals 0. Square root property, basically, get it, the x squared part by itself, and take the square root of both sides. So add 5 to both sides. X squared equals 5. Now to undo the squared, we take square root of both sides. Don't forget to put the plus or minus in front of that square root. The radical cancels out the squared, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 5. So that's number 1. Number 2, use the discriminant to determine the number and type of solutions to the equation. Well, if you remember, the discriminant is the part underneath the radical in the quadratic formula. X equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's the whole quadratic formula. The discriminant is just the part underneath here. And what you really need to know is if it's positive, you're going to have 2 real solutions. Okay. If it's 0, you'll have 1 solution, and that solution is going to be real. If it's negative, you're going to have 2 solutions, but they're going to be complex, with the part real. Okay, so if it's a negative discriminant, you'll have 2 complex solutions, which means you'll have an imaginary and possibly a real part. So it won't be a real number. Okay, so for this, a is 1, b is 7, and c is 3. So we need b squared minus 4ac. So 7 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 3. 7 squared is 49. 4 times 3 is 12. 49 minus 12 is 37. Okay. Now 37 is positive. So this quadratic equation will have 2 real solutions. All right. Now for number 3, we actually show you all the options for the multiple choice. To solve this, looks like we're going to use the quadratic formula, since all of these have irrational roots. So in order to solve this, first we're going to go through and use the quadratic formula. Oops. In order to do that, we have to get everything to one side. So we're going to add 1 to both sides of the equation. So we have 4x squared plus 10x. Adding 1 to the other side is plus 1. So that's equal 0. Now we can use the quadratic formula. So x is going to equal the opposite of b, so negative 10 plus or minus the square root. Let's see, b squared, so 10 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 1, all over 2 times a. So x equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 100 minus 16 over 8. Okay, so I just need to finish simplifying that. X equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root 100 by 16 is 84 all over 8. Now 84, since that is divisible by 4, I can actually simplify that radical to be negative 10 plus or minus, take 4 out, square root of 4 is 2, times the square root of 81 divided by 4 is 21 over 8. Last thing to do, 10, 2, and 8 are all divisible by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So my final answer is x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 21 over 4. Okay. So when you're looking at that, you have to look through the possible solutions to find one that has negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 21 over 4. Okay, so here negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 21 over 8. So that's not it. 8's wrong. Negative 10 minus the square root of 21 over 4. Nope, should be negative 5. Here underneath the radical is 29, so we know that's not a solution. So the last one here, negative 5 minus the square root of 21 over 4, and negative 5 plus the square root of 21 over 4. So that would be the correct solution. Here's number 4. The square root of 8x minus 7 equals 0. in order to solve an equation with the radical, we need to get the radical by itself. So then after that, we can square both sides to get a solution. Here, this is multiple choice. I'm going to do the work right down here so we have room. Square root of 8x minus 7. Now, first thing I'm going to do is just right away add 7 to both sides. So this automatically equals 7. Now to get rid of the radical, I need to square both sides. The radical and the square cancel. So over here I have 8x minus 7 equals 49. Hey, now it's not going to be that bad. All I need to do is get the x by itself. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So 8x equals 56. Divide both sides by 8. 56 divided by 8 is 7. Okay, so x equals 7. Now when it comes to equations like this, it's always important to check to make sure your solution works in the original problem. 8 times 7 is 56. 56 minus 7 is 49. Square root of 49 is 7. 7 minus 7 is equal to 0. Okay, so that is a real solution. Okay, so x equals 7. So for number 4, the answer should be A. Okay, here's number 5. It also is a radical equation, so we need to get the radical alone on one side of the equation. So to do that, we're going to first start by subtracting x from both sides. So we're going to have negative square root of 7x equals negative x plus 1. I don't like having that negative in front. Okay, I don't really like having that negative in front. So to get rid of it, just to make me feel better, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1. So you have the square root of 7x equals, now distribute over here, you end up with x. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Okay, to get rid of the radical, I have to square both sides. There you go. So we have just 7x over here. On the other side here, remember that x minus 1 squared means x minus 1 times x minus 1. So it's super important that you actually go through and FOIL these two binomials together. Do all that distributing. X times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Okay. Now, all at once, I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides and combine all the like terms. So these three terms are going to combine together. 7x minus 7x is 0. So 0, x squared. Negative 1x minus 1x minus 7x ends up being negative 9x altogether, then plus 1. Now this looks like a pretty nice quadratic, but unfortunately it can't be factored, so we need to use a quadratic formula. So x equals the opposite b. Well, a is 1, b is negative 9, and c is 1. So the opposite of b is 9, plus or minus the square root. Negative 9 squared minus 4 times a times c. That's both 1. Divided by 2 times a, which is 1. Once you put everything in the right spot, you can go through and simplify. I'm going to skip a couple steps here. 9 plus or minus square root of 81 minus 4 is 77 divided by 2. And so we need the leading number here, the 9, to be positive, and plus or minus square root of 77 over 2. So when you're looking through the multiple choice answers, this is positive, square root of 85. 9 minus the square root of 77 over 2, and 9 plus the square root of 77 over 2. So B is your answer. The problem with number C, or choice C, is that the 9 is negative on those. And for D, basically they only give you one solution. And you have to have both solutions. So the correct answer for number 5 is B. Okay, moving on to number 16. I'm running out of room here, but 16x equals the square root of 1 minus 24x. Okay, this one is going to end up with some large numbers. I'm going to rewrite it over here so we have more room to work. 16x equals the square root of 1 minus 24x. Okay, the radical's already by itself, so I'm just going to square both sides to begin with. 16 squared is 256, so 256x squared equals, when I square this, I cancel out the radical, so 1 minus 24x. Now to solve the to solve the quadratic, I need to get everything to one side of the equation, so I'll subtract 1 from both sides, and I'm going to add 24x to both sides. Basically moving everything to the other side, equal sign. So I have 0 left over here. On this side, putting everything in order, I have 256x squared plus 24x minus 1. Ooh, squeeze that in. Okay, now some people might be able to solve if that's possible later. And I'll say x equals the opposite of b, which is negative 24 plus or minus the square root of 24 squared minus 4 times a, which is 250 times c, which is negative 1, all over 2 times a, which is 256. Okay. Alright, so x equals negative 24 plus or minus. It turns out that 24 squared minus a negative or plus 4 times 256 ends up being the square root of 1600. I'll divide by 2 times 256, which is 512. So x is going to equal negative 24 plus or minus square root of 1600 is 40 over 512. Alright, so negative 24 plus 40 over 512 is 16 over 512. And then if I subtract negative 24 minus 40, it would be negative 64 over 512. Alright, and both of these will simplify. I believe 16 and 512 reduced to be 1 over 32. And 64 and divided by 512 is going to reduce to negative 1/8. Okay, now, at first you might be happy with those two answers and like, oh look, but there's only one choice here at a time. There's no place with two solutions. So what we need to do is we need to check to see which one would be the correct solution and which one is extraneous. Okay, a solution that you came up with algebraically but actually doesn't solve or doesn't work in the problem. Okay. Negatives are usually where you have the problem. So let's go up here and look at the original problem. If I put negative 1/8 in for x, 16 times negative 1/8 would be negative 2. Well, a radical cannot, when you take the square root of something, it cannot equal a negative. So negative 1/8 is an extraneous solution. So the correct solution is A, 1 over 32. Okay. All right. Now let's do number 7, and then I'm going to quit for a minute and start up the next video. On number 7, x squared plus 6x minus 24. This quadratic is probably best solved by factoring. Leading coefficient on the x squared is just 1, so we can factor into x and x. Now we're looking for two numbers that are going to multiply to be negative 27 and add to be 6. And I believe 9 and 3 multiply to be 27. And if the 9 is positive and 3 is negative, they'll add to be positive 6. Now, to make these solutions to the equation from the factors, set each factor equal to 0. X plus 9 equals 0, so x would equal negative 9. X minus 3 equals 0, so x would equal positive 3. So those are my two solutions to this equation. So the answer is, C, 3 and negative 9. Notice for part D, this is called a distractor, and a really good one because the numbers are the same. They're actually the numbers you use for factoring. So a lot of people will be tricked by that. Just be careful. Make sure you're solving it and not just finding factors.